got to get this thing going here because we have a very special guest on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. So we're talking, obviously, NFL postseason, specifically the Colts and the Chiefs in the AFC Divisional playoff game coming up on Saturday afternoon. It's on NBC. And from Football Night in America, Sunday Night Football, the former head coach here and just one of our favorite guys ever, Tony Dungy, joins us. Hey, Tony, welcome back to town. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's good to be on with you. Seems like old times.
Yeah, old times are good around here because 3 years is a long time to try to get back to the old times, Tony, that we remember, especially with you around here back in the day, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. And it has been wonderful to see this resurgence and just watching this team in November and December. It's been awesome to see. We've got the game on NBC Saturday afternoon, and we're excited. I think we're going to have the best game of the weekend.
I think you're right, too. Tony Dungy joins us. We sat in a studio here downstairs back in August and talked about a variety of things and went over. When this whole thing went down with McDaniels, you had a conversation with Jim Irsay about Frank Reich, and obviously said, this is a guy that is going to be really good. The recommendation was there. Is this year one kind of what you thought you were going to get? Because I think, honestly, Tony, I think Frank has been perfect for this team this year.
He has, and I thought we would get this. It frankly happened a little faster than I thought we would get it. But I knew he would just put a stamp on this team. I told Jim at the time, I thought that was just the Lord watching out for the Colts and that they were going to get the right person. And it did. It ended up being Frank Reich, and I think he has just been perfect.
What is so unique about him? Because I have said this before. I actually told Reggie Wayne this about a month ago that I thought, to me, demeanor-wise, personality-wise, he's a little like you, because everything can be going absolutely crazy on the outside and around you, but you guys both have this kind of calm, cool, and collected attitude that I think connects to the players. Therefore, you get stronger and more productive player reactions. Is there a comparison to be made there, personality-wise?
Well, I'll take that as a compliment, but talking to the players, I've been out here today doing interviews for NBC, and they all say the same thing: just focus, compose, keeps everybody on track. But more than anything, they know they can trust him, and there's a belief that they are going to be on the right track with him, and they believe in him.
So, Tony Dungy, Football Night in America, NBC's got the coverage of the Colts and the Chiefs coming up on Saturday afternoon from Arrowhead in Kansas City. Should he be the coach of the year in the NFL this season?
I have a vote for AP, and I voted for Frank. I believe when you start off 1-5 and you take your team to where they are, you just have to say that's a tremendous job. There have been some other good coaching jobs, and Matt Nagy, the turnaround in Chicago, that's tremendous, and Andy Reid's done a great job. But to come in your first year and to not have the success right away, to struggle to get to that point, and then to be able to rally and keep everybody together, I think he should be the coach of the year.
And Tony, we've discussed that around here. We've discussed as well Chris Ballard as executive of the year, and oftentimes we get to maybe it's going to be Ryan Pace of the Bears, maybe it's going to be Chris Ballard. Should Chris Ballard get the honor of being executive of the year?
Boy, you have to look at it, and when you draft two players that make the All-Pro team their first year, when you pick a coach who has, takes you to the playoffs your first year, you still have the salary cap room. You haven't mortgaged the future. He's done a tremendous job.
You're a defensive guy. What do you think when you watch Darius Leonard perform as a rookie, Tony?
I had a chance to meet him today for the first time, and I told him he's playing a very, very special, unique position. This position started with Jack Ham in the early 70s, and then it went to Derek Brooks and Mike Merriweather and Cato June, and there have been some really special players to play that will linebacker position in this defense, and he's playing it as well as anybody. He's got the torch to carry. The position demands a lot. But when you've got a playmaker there, he can be a difference maker, and Darius certainly is. And from everything I hear from everybody around this building, he's not only a special player, but a special person, too.
I know a lot of people threw out the comparisons, Tony, to that of Derek Brooks. Obviously, you know him incredibly well. Is there a solid comparison to be made there?
There is some of the same type of quickness and explosion and striking ability, but Darius has a little bit longer arms, a little bit bigger body, and he's a better pass rusher. So he can do some things now. He's not on the level of Derek Brooks yet. We got to give him about 5 or 6 more Pro Bowls before that happens. But he's certainly off to a great start, and he's hungry to learn, which is what you need.
Tony Dungy's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, in town right now doing interviews for the game coming up on Saturday. Of course, the Colts and the Chiefs on NBC, and we're fantastically proud to have him on the show today. I'm kind of curious what you think about this matchup in general, because I threw this out here on Monday when we found out this was going to be the matchup and really started to talk about it here in Indianapolis, was that, you would consider having to keep up with Kansas City offensively to be a priority, but might, because of the Kansas City defense, which has been suspect more than it hasn't, might Kansas City feel it necessary to keep up with Andrew Luck and the Colts offense Saturday?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see who feels more pressure. And, I coached in Kansas City for 3 years. I know that environment. And all of those guys, what they're hearing all this week is, hey, you haven't won a playoff game in so long. You've never beaten the Colts in the playoffs. You haven't won a home playoff game in 25 years. What's going to happen? They're getting all this. And, yeah, they've got a great offense. But these last few games down the stretch in the regular season, their defense has given up leads. So there is going to be that sense that, hey, even if we get ahead of score, we better score again. And so, the Colts have the pressure of playing on the road, but the Chiefs have this pressure of history, and it's going to be interesting to see who actually handles it better.
All right, and you also mentioned pressure. The Chiefs' pressure of history, which you allude to. Yeah. What about the pressure of being a first-time quarterback in a playoff situation, which is incredibly different than a regular season game? And we've seen, these first-time guys in the postseason, whether it's Deshaun Watson, we saw him last week in Houston, and Lamar Jackson, not really hold up too well. Is there something we might look at with Mahomes, even though he is the league MVP?
He is cool. He's been poised all year. My sense is he's going to play great. But as you mentioned, you look at these new quarterbacks this year, and they weren't the same. Mitch Trubisky played a very good game against Philadelphia, but Deshaun Watson was not what we had seen in the regular season. Lamar Jackson was not. So there is something to that. Your first time out of the box in the playoffs, it's different, no question.
Hey, Tony, what impresses you about what Chris Ballard and company they're building here right now?
I think getting, I talked to Frank about it, and it's getting the right type of people, not compromising on your standards that way, and bringing a team that is really focused on playing together. So I think the character of these guys and the togetherness, that's what's going to make this team special, and I think they're just scratching the surface of what they can be.
Yeah, after a 1-5 start, I'll tell you what, too, this season, normally you don't hit these kind of historical markers as they have. They started 1-5, made the postseason, becoming the third team to do that, and then with the 2 All-Pros in Nelson and then in Leonard, and that's the first time that's happened with a couple of rookies on the same team since Butkus and Sayers in Chicago in 1965. Those are 2 really big stats right there, Tony.
They are, and then you've got so many young players, and then when you think about it, well, who are the core guys? Who are the kind of seasoned veterans? And it's Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton. Well, these guys aren't 35 years old. Their core guys are in their prime. So I think it's a really, really bright future for Colts football.
All right, I thought I had to ask you this, and Tony Dungy of NBC's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So let's just say back in the day, Reggie Wayne shows up to a game with a clown mask on. What would have been your reaction?
I would have been stunned, but of course it's a different world now, and the social media and all of that is different. It just wouldn't have happened back then. But I think, these guys know Frank Reich, and he wants them to be focused. He wants them to be dialed in. He wants them to be team oriented. but they also have a little fun. I've seen Frank in the sunglasses and the shades coming to work, so it's a different world now.
How different is Frank compared to when you first knew him back in the day now to what he is as a first-year head coach here in Indy?
I think he's really the same guy. One of the advantages I think Frank has as a backup quarterback, you were a guy that had to just be prepared all the time. You never knew when you were going to play, but you had to prepare as if you were going to be in the lineup week in and week out. So he's used to that, and he's used to just focusing and keeping the nose to the grindstone, and I think that's where he is, and that's what this team feeds off of.
Andrew Luck in his first year back after missing an entire year. Is this much better than you even expected him to look like, after missing a year last year?
You just heard the reports that, he's not throwing well, he doesn't have the velocity on the ball, maybe it'll never be back totally. Andrew's going to play smart, he's going to be prepared, he's athletic, all of those things. I just didn't know how he was going to throw the ball, but this last month, watching him closely and watching him throw, I think it's the same Andrew Luck. So, yeah, I would have to say, based on the reports I was getting this offseason, I'm very pleasantly surprised.
Tony Dungy joins us. I also thought this. I thought Frank's offensive philosophy, and once Anthony Costanzo, got back from injury and joined that offensive line, again, you're seeing Frank Reich being perfect. He was perfect for this team and perfect for Andrew Luck part 2 after missing last year, I think, offensively too.
Yeah, and I think he's convinced Andrew that you don't have to make every single play. Every play doesn't have to be a touchdown. And you know what? We need you out there. So running out of bounds, sliding, getting rid of the football, throwing an incomplete pass is not the worst thing in the world, and I think that's really helped Andrew.
That is a great point, because I would have to think, as a coach, that is incredibly difficult to get across the right way to a player of the magnitude of Andrew Luck, is it not?
Who has the competitiveness and wants to help his team win and wants to make every play, and to get him to say, you know what? There are times when you're going to have to do that, and you might have to sell out and dive and get the first down that's going to be the game winner, but not every single play. So that's what we've got to, recognize, and that's what you've got to get better at, and Andrew has.
All right. Tony, what do you think about the Colts and the Chiefs? You make predictions yet, or do we have to wait until Saturday afternoon to see it?
If it wasn't our game, I could tell you, but because
you're not allowed?
It's our game, I have to give the prediction on Saturday night, but I love where the Colts are. And I know they're the underdogs going in, but it's going to be a tremendous game.
Can you give me the other 3, starting in the AFC with the Chargers and the Patriots on Sunday?
I can. I like the upsets in the AFC. I like the Chargers, and then I like the favorites in the NFC.
And before I let you go, I can't get away without asking you about the coaching hire, specifically Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. And really these teams, a lot of these teams now trying to track down that next Sean McVay type of thing. Are these hires being made, in your opinion, the right way? Is it justifiable for a guy like Kingsbury, who struggled at Texas Tech, got fired, let go basically at Texas Tech, now as an NFL head coach in Arizona? I mean, is this something that you think can work?
Well, I never criticize other people's hires, because 3 years ago, everybody said the worst hire in the world was Doug Peterson. And where did he come from? And how could they hire him? And he's the only man standing, and they've got a Super Bowl. Frank Reich was the last guy hired, and, the Colts didn't get their first choice, and they should have had Josh McDaniels, and Frank is obviously the right person. So, I feel bad. I think some of these owners don't understand the process, and they're totally ignoring defensive coaches who might be great people. I think they're looking for lightning in a bottle. But if they've done their homework and that's the guy they're convinced they can do it for their franchise, more power to them.
Is it going to make it difficult for a guy like Matt Eberflus to get a head coaching job because of the philosophy with a lot of these organizational heads now?
I was on Twitter, and a couple of Colts fans said, boy, I hope we don't lose Matt Eberflus. I said, don't worry. The owners aren't smart enough to hire him. They're looking for offensive gurus. Yeah,
that's kind of where it is. Hey, how's the book doing before I let you go? The book's
coming out the week of the championship game. So, yeah, and it's amazing. It's on teamwork and team building and some of these very things we're talking about, and it'll be out in 2 weeks.
By the way, Reggie also told a great story about the Devin Hester return. back in the Super Bowl. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, that we practiced for 2 weeks, keeping the ball away from him. And then I heard the chapel service, and the chapel speaker was talking about David and Goliath and don't be afraid. And I come in Saturday night and say, hey, we can't be afraid. If we lose the toss, we're kicking off right down the middle to Devin Hester, one of the dumbest decisions ever made. Totally on me.
I'd never heard that story before, but you can imagine you like cut it loose in 30 seconds. It took him about 5.5 minutes to describe it.
I know there was a big build-up. Yeah.
Hey, we'll be watching coming up on Saturday. It's always great to have you on. Always great to have you back in town. And thanks so much for what you do, and we'll do it again soon, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tony Dungy on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm telling you, he's one of my favorite guys of all time right there. It's an all-timer. Yeah, the Reggie Wayne conversation went about 5.5 minutes of that. I thought Reggie Wayne described it as did he describe it as a dream or a chapel service?
I thought it was described as a dream.
I thought he described it as a Tony Dungy dream the night before the Super Bowl.
Either way.
But yeah, he said the David and Goliath chapel service. So let's just kick it right to him. Touchdown. That's classic right there.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Shane says this. Tony just answered your question without answering your question. Did you hear this too, Tony? He said he likes the upsets in the AFC.
Yeah, no, he definitely answered that.
I think,
we definitely know where he's going.
He answered it without answering it. You're absolutely right. Oh, man, that is outstanding.
He picked the Colts on Saturday when we were watching that, I believe, and I think we know he's going to pick the Colts. He kind of just cleared that up for us. But when I've made this comparison in the past, and I told Reggie Wayne this, I've told Peyton Manning this before when they've been on the show about my comparison between Dungy and Reich, and they're different. There's no doubt about it. But again, Tony mentioned the right word, the right way to describe it, and that was poise. He said he was talking to the team, a lot of the players, and what's Frank Reich bring to the team? Poise. Poise under pressure. And that's kind of what you look at Frank Reich, and maybe he doesn't have all the answers, but man, it looks like he has all the answers. You're not looking over to the sideline at somebody that looks like they either A, don't have the answer, or absolutely losing their mind. And I always thought that Tony was that way, and that is the way that I view Frank Reich as well. So, yeah, maybe it's not the biggest of comparisons to make, but I think it's one that around here has been incredibly welcomed. All right, 239-1070 telephone number. Email address at jmv@1070thefan.com. I love to get off to a great show start on a Wednesday with Tony Dungy from NBC. NBC has the game, of course, coming up on Saturday. Colts and the Chiefs from Arrowhead Stadium. All right, we got a lot to get to. I was discussing the coaching hires with Tony. And he had a good point to make. Because everybody is going to sit here and wax poetic about how bad this hire is and that hire is. But same things were said regarding Doug Peterson, and that turned out okay. And in reverse, the same things were said about the greatness of Chip Kelly, and that turned out in reverse. But, you're hiring a dude that's, well below 500. I will say this. I think what they're doing in Denver, to me, makes a lot of sense. Now, what's going to make the most sense is getting a quarterback, because they do have talent. So today, Denver hires Vic Fangio. Gary Kubiak is going to be a part of, obviously, the offense and the offensive coordinator. So you have that handle. I think those are two really good coaches to start, coming off of the whole Vance Joseph era, which didn't have a chance. But Denver still has to get, you got to get a quarterback before, this is going to return to what you expect it to be. Yeah, I did see this. You guys are sending me this. Jason McIntyre what's Jason McIntyre do? That's not Deadspin. What is that? Whatever Jason McIntyre does? He tweeted out, teams that may have interest in Von Miller. And you're going to get a lot of this. Fox, I think.
I think anytime you get anytime you get a big name, like Antonio Brown's name has been dropped around, and Le'Veon Bell's name, and Le'Veon Bell has done it himself as well. When you have a Colts team that is as up and coming as it is, which has as much cap room and really overall team roster flexibility, I mean, you got a lot of ways you can go. I mean, the Colts are not painted in the corner by any stretch of the imagination here. And you're probably always going to be a team on this list. And what surprises everybody with a list like that, normally it's the bad teams that get